Okay, good morning and welcome to the CBA, AGM and Beatrice the Cardi lecture. Throughout the proceedings today, please feel free to ask any questions you have via the Q&A and the chat functions. My name is Neil Redfern. I'm the Executive Director of the Council for British Archaeology, and I'm just going to cover the housekeeping, and then I will be in charge of the slide deck this morning and coming in later on the AGM's agenda. Any questions you have, we'll do our best to answer as many as possible. Those we cannot address, we will give written answers to. We will attach those answers to the minutes of the meeting, and we'll also post them online so that you can have access to them. We will be recording the AGM, and we will be recording the later Cardi lecture. Voting will be done via online polls. We will alert you when you need to vote, and you will have 3 options each time. A vote saying yes, no, or abstain. The AGM will be led by our Chair of Trustees, Gail Boyle. And I would like to now formally ask Gail Boyle to welcome you and open the CBA's AGM. Gail, good morning.
Morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us at a very early time on Saturday morning. Welcome to our AGM. There's a number of items of business that I'm going to start off with before we go through to some presentations. So the first formal item of business is the confirmation of appointments to the Board of Trustees. So confirmation, CBA trustees. This AGM marks the standing down of 3 CBA trustees, Fiona Gale, John Schofield and Kirsty McCarrison. We'd like to offer our thanks to them for their hard work and commitment to the CBA during their time as trustees. The meeting is asked to ratify the election of Amanda Jones, Guy Schofield and Mary Howarth as new trustees of the CBA, as the number of candidates for election did not exceed the number of available places. No ballot is required. Candidate statements have been provided to you. So the vote is, do you ratify the election of the above named trustees? Yes, no, or abstain? Can I just ask Jim, has everybody voted? Okay, so the result of that vote is there. 89% have voted in favour, and we have 11% abstention and no objections, so that vote is carried. Just bear with me a minute while I change my screen. The meeting is asked to ratify the re-election of Saffron Penrose and Philip Pollard for a 2nd term as trustees of the CBA. Candidate statements were provided. The vote will be open. Do you ratify the re-election of the above named trustees? Yes, no, or abstain?
Are you able to see that, or is it not
We
launched?
can't see the voting page, Jim. I thought that might just be me.
No, hang on.
Thank you.
That's it.
So the result of that vote is 89% in favour, no against, and 11% abstain. Now we move on to the CBA Honorary Treasurer. The meeting is asked to vote on the election of Amanda Jones to the role of the CBA Honorary Treasurer in accordance with the CBA Articles of Association. The membership is asked to ratify the election of Amanda Jones as CBA Honorary Treasurer. Candidate statement has been provided. So the vote is, do you ratify the election of Amanda Jones as CBA Honorary Treasurer? Yes, no, or abstain? Thank you very much. So the vote has ended and the results are 89% in favour, no objections and 11% abstention. Thank you very much. Now we move on to item 2 of the agenda, which are the minutes of the annual general meeting held on Saturday, the 10th of February 2024. Item 1 is matter arising from the minutes if not referred to below. I haven't been made aware of any matters that are arising from the minutes that are not already covered, unless anybody would like to tell me otherwise. I'm not receiving any messages from anybody. So item 2 is to approve the draft minutes of the annual general meeting held on Saturday, the 10th of February 2024 via Zoom. Does anybody have any questions on those minutes before we move to the votes? I'm not seeing any questions. Neil, are you seeing any questions coming through?
Not at the moment.
No questions. So I'm going to move to the vote. Do you approve the draft minutes of the AGM held on the 10th of February 2024? Yes, no, or abstain? So the results on that are as follows. Yes, 67%, no objections and 33% abstentions. So the vote therefore is carried. So I think that means that we now move on to something which doesn't involve voting, and a short presentation, firstly from myself and then by Neil. As most of you who will be aware, this was my first year as the chair of CBA, and it's been a real privilege to be involved with the work of the group. It was also a baptism of fire in terms of learning exactly what the CBA does, all the organisations that it's involved with, and some of the challenges that we've had to meet along the way. Clearly, it was our 80th anniversary this year. There's a little slide that Neil had put together as part of the celebration event that we did at the Society of Antiquaries in London in December. And I would urge everybody, if you've not already seen the video of that presentation, to go away and have a listen and a watch, because it really does sum up what we've been doing over the last 80 years, but also what we are anticipating to be doing in the coming years, and the challenges we face as well as the other groups. In terms of what challenges there have been, obviously during this year there's been a general election, there have been consequent changes and proposed changes to the planning system, potential revisions to the curriculum. I've been making it my aim to meet as many people as possible, particularly chairs of groups, and also other organisations. And I've been going to a wide variety of meetings. I participate, for example, in the Archaeology Forum meetings. I've also been doing informal one-to-ones with staff groups, and presenting. So my first presentation was at the Chartered Institute for Archaeologists Conference in April, and then ended the year with a presentation at the Society of Antiquaries, which, as you can see on your screen, was the place that the CBA was born in 1944. There are several phases of history of the CBA. If you're interested in those phases, you can get more detail on the website. But what we're doing now is going into a new phase. We are going into a new phase where we're where we're trying to deliver our vision. And as you can see, this is our vision. It's to enable anyone, and that is a really key word, is anyone to have the skills, not necessarily everyone to have the skills, because we are aware that not everyone wants to or can or should. So it's anyone. And we don't really use the word archaeology there because that vision encapsulates what we think archaeology is all about. It's about stories, understanding, place, and inclusivity. And that's the narrative, which is supported by a whole set of values and our mission statement, which includes keywords such as inspire, engage, help, grow, and impact. And what we're really trying to get here is it's about participatory practice. That's a phrase that in my area of the world, particularly the museum world, that we're used to. We want to create something that matters to people from their perspective. We want to champion innovation. We want to be audience focused. And then to deliver that, we have 5 key areas of activity which support our membership. We deliver events and projects. We're a national amenity society, and we support people through our communications, including the magazine and various online platforms, newsletters, and equally as importantly, through the youth engagement programs, of which there are a wide variety. I should say that you'll get a lot of detail about exactly what those events have been through the video, which comes at the end of the AGM. They're very high level. These are very high level. The flagship event, obviously for us, is the Festival of Archaeology. And the most important thing that we need to do as an organisation is to demonstrate the impact that we can have on people and society and what they get out of it. An evaluation study for the last 5 years of the Festival of Archaeology has been published on our website, and it comes up with some pretty big numbers. So I'm just going to pull out one just there because it is not a mistake, and I keep saying this every time I read it. 358,984,239. That's the reach of that event over the last 5 years. And you'll also see what the impact that has had on the children and the families that have participated in these kinds of events. It is a really key part of our going forward, our future, that we evaluate what we do and we share that evaluation with everybody, because that means we can advocate on behalf of archaeology and also on behalf of everybody who wants to engage. And I just would like to say at this point, I need to commend our team. We have a small team of people at CBA. Every single one of them contributes massively to creating a huge impact. And that includes the casework team. So we do casework, obviously the buildings archaeology casework. We have a role as a national amenity society. There are some big numbers in terms of how we respond to planning applications, for example, that relative to listed buildings, over 8,500 applications. We also manage the whole of that system for the joint national committee for amenity societies. And there are detailed responses that are provided through that secretariat. 359 local authorities engaged with us over the last 12 months. That is a huge amount of work. And we're also interested in engaging young people and promoting representation. So we don't just respond to buildings casework, we are responding to other kinds of consultations, including changes to the national curriculum, for example, where we see archaeology as an integral part of the curriculum, not just a particular element of a key stage. So our priorities are there. It's about grassroots archaeology and participation. And there is a huge impact in terms of what we do with regard to the youth engagement and archaeology in decision making. I already mentioned one evaluation relevant to the Festival of Archaeology. There's been an impact study done in one region of YAC. Some of you will remember, this is actually, this year will be the 33, 50 odd years since YAC was born as Young Rescue. There are 70 clubs, there are about 400 volunteers, about 2,000 participants. These are big numbers in terms of the impact that people who are involved in this activity actually generate. 88% of parents and carers said their child's enthusiasm for archaeology, heritage and history had increased since they joined YAC. And 75% of members have developed their knowledge of future opportunities. It's a really key aspect of what we do. We work with young people through YAC, but we will also work with young people with other elements of the work we're doing, including our Youth Advisory Board. And it is about impact. If you are involved in this kind of work, these numbers and these evaluation reports that CBA have been producing are really key for you as members to be able to use. You can advocate with this information, and it is a big programme of work that CBA and Neil is going to elaborate further on. One other important point, though, is we've got census information. And as far as YAC is concerned, in the heritage world, it's the only part of the heritage world which truly, the membership is truly representative of our population. So members from non-white backgrounds make up 13.47% of the total membership. And in 2023, 31% specially said they had special needs. It meets a particular need, and specifically members with autistic spectrum disorder make up 10.67% of those who responded. And that's something that is a really key thing. It is representative of our society. I just want to say something about CBA and the financial background. You've been provided with access. We produce a very huge trustees report and financial statements with lots of detail. The pie chart on the left of this screen summarises the source of income that we have. I should say straight away that the CBA is financially stable. We are reliant. You can see there's a large proportion of our income comes directly from grants. There's a huge amount of work that is required in order to be able to sustain that. Membership provides us with 18% of our income, British Archaeology magazine 9%, and then there are donations and other funders, particularly NLHF, that should be NHLF, which has provided us with that money to do our project called Reconnecting Archaeology, and that's something that Neil will be talking about. So we have really good support from grant funders, but we know as trustees that we need to diversify those sources of income, and that there is a particular focus that is required to generate sources of unrestricted income. So whether that's through commercial activity, whether it's through sponsorship or donations or legacies. And so to that end, we've been working with a fundraising consultancy to make our statement of case and to widen what we'll be doing. That brings me on to our membership, because obviously membership is a source of income, and there are the statistics for our members. 3,500 individual members and subscribers, because clearly people subscribe to the magazine, and about 250 organisational members. We're open to everybody, and we work with groups. So the CBA groups, and each one of those groups is subtly different to each other. I've been meeting with some of the chairs. I apologise if I haven't got round to meeting with you as a chair of one of those groups and you're in attendance today. And we also have affiliate members, which can be local archaeological societies. Those societies, those organisational members, at the peak of the number, we had 500, and that's been dropping. That's not necessarily just something that is relevant to CBA. It is something that's happening to lots of other organisations, and Neil will be talking about the Taking the Temperature survey, what that tells us about those organisations. But the membership is a really key part of it, and the narrative about what you as members receive on behalf of your subscription includes what we do. So our membership benefits are shown on screen at the moment. This is what you get as members. But I think what we really need to articulate as an organisation is that you as members support all of that impactful work that CBA does. You are a part of that narrative. We would like to share that narrative with you. We'd like to encourage you to become part of that narrative. So there's two ways of looking at this. we benefit from your membership subscriptions and your activities and your donations, but the whole of the sector benefits from you being a member. And if you can encourage other people to be members, obviously we would welcome that. And we obviously look for additional sponsorship and donations. So you get something and we get something, but effectively we are doing this on behalf of the sector. It's what you enable. I'm going to go back to a reference that I made earlier to the Youth Advisory Board. So we have 12 young people that were recruited. We also have over 100 associate youth members, but the Youth Advisory Board is a key element of what we're doing. 2 of those Youth Advisory Board members are invited to attend on a rotational basis full trustees meetings, and there was one significant meeting in November where we discussed the barriers and what people wanted from a younger audience perspective, and we tried to reflect some of that feedback and some of that guidance from the Youth Advisory Board in what we're suggesting with a new student membership rate. At the moment, we have about 100 student members. There is a pool of at least 6,000 across the country that we'd like to. And obviously, we're also mindful that our costs, which are increasing, and also the membership rates that we are proposing to increase, Neil will talk about that shortly, that we're going to introduce a new digital-only membership rate at £40, which is lower than the paper copy rate. So I'm now going to move on to item 4 on the agenda, which comes in before Neil's report, which is to do with the annual trustees report and financial statements. So we are to receive and adopt the report of the trustees and audit accounts for the year ending 31st of March 2024. Can I first ask, are there any questions that anybody would like to ask about the trustees report and financial statements as submitted? I see no questions, Neil. Can you just confirm you can't see any questions either?
At the moment, I don't have any questions.
Thank you very much. So we'll move to the vote. Do you approve the trustees' annual report? Yes, no, or abstain? So the result is 83% in favour, no objections, and 17% abstention. So the report is approved, which means that I can now invite Neil to give a short executive director's report on current and future activities. Neil, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gail. Just to remind everybody, please do put any questions you've got for either Gail or myself or any of the information you're getting in the Q&A function on your screens or in the chat, and we'll do our best to get those answered for you. I'm delighted to be able to give you an update on the current activity of the CBA and the focus of what we're trying to do. As Gail has mentioned, some quite important buzzwords, not just about looking at the impact of our work, but also looking at how we move forward and really importantly through our current Heritage Fund project, Reconnecting Archaeology. What we're absolutely clear about is we do need to reimagine and revitalise the CBA's role. Yes, we've been in existence for 80 years, but the world we're in today is a very different one from when we were founded. Although we can draw inspiration from our founding story and what that actually means. I often dwell on the fact that when we were founded in 1944, it was to understand the opportunity that was going to be afforded to archaeology in post-war reconstruction. And I've always found that a very aspirational pitch. And I think that's something we really need to start defining and looking at a lot better. So we need to understand our role better. We need to understand how we can support our network of individuals, groups and societies. from the bedrock of grassroots archaeology in the UK right through to some of the larger activities that actually go on. We need to bridge gaps and strengthen ties within the archaeological sector itself to create a more cohesive and supportive community. We have a real function in this area. And indeed, our Reconnecting Archaeology project is helping us define what those issues are. Now, Reconnecting Archaeology won't answer all of our issues, it won't solve all of our problems, but it's absolutely helping us gather the information and the evidence we need to actually shape and define our future strategies. So it's looking at our role as a networking organisation, and it's looking at our role as how we connect and support people. It has 4 key pillars of activity. One is looking at audience research. So who are the audiences we might want to attract now and in the future? A second is looking at some catalyst projects. These are people who are already doing really imaginative things, and we're trying to seek learning from them. There is a strand looking at our membership and how we might reimagine that. And then there's a really critical one looking at organizational resilience. And I'm just going to focus on 3 of these in a little bit more detail. So first of all, audience research. In my experience, archaeologists are exceptionally good at talking to other archaeologists. What we need to do is broaden out our audience. We need to understand what other people might want to hear and do in relation to archaeology. What is their exposure to archaeology and how might they want to engage deeper? We've seen from statistics around the festival that we know we've got a vast audience who watch, but how might we deepen and strengthen those ties with archaeology and ourselves, and what will that mean? So again, understanding audiences is going to be a key function of the CBA moving forward. How do we break down the barriers to participation, and how do we act with more equity to ensure that anyone, as Gail pointed out, can actually take part and participate? We know this is an issue for us because our membership numbers are not looking great in terms of retention and increasing numbers, and that's the same for British Archaeology magazine. We know again from our demographics of our membership that our membership is aging, and that we have, beyond the Young Archaeologists Club, had challenges attracting younger members. We are going to have to address this directly. And indeed, I would actually say this is slightly reminiscent of the wider archaeological community as well. So in order to inform our lottery project, we ran a survey in late 2023 and early 2024 called Taking the Temperature that was aimed at archaeological groups and societies. We had over 250 responses, and the report is now published on the CBA's website, so you can go and see that. But one of the really interesting things is almost universally everybody wanted more members, younger volunteers, and more volunteers. And there's some really interesting data that starts to come out, and the size of organizations, not just their size is decreasing, but the number of active participants, those organizing the groups and organizing the events, is getting smaller and smaller. On average, there are about only 10 active people in each group, which puts a lot of burden on those people. But what I also found really interesting when we asked what their priority areas of support were, the one area they didn't come out very highly was audience development. And again, this is a key function that we can actually help groups with and help ourselves with in understanding those audiences and how do we reach different people. It's going to be really fundamental looking forward. What Audience Wants is going to be part of a upcoming couple of surveys that the CBA are going to run. So we are going to be doing a survey about British Archaeology magazine. British Archaeology is the single most expensive thing we produce at the CBA. I can't underestimate its importance to us in terms of being able to transmit our voice, in terms of actually being able to showcase archaeology to wider audiences. As you know, in 2023, our long-serving editor, Mike Pitts, stood down from his role as editor of the magazine. And I have to say, replacing him has been one of the most challenging things I've had to do since being here. Finding somebody who actually knows about archaeology with the depth of experience and knowledge to actually be able to contact people to generate articles, but also to rewrite articles in a manner where more people can understand them and engage with them has been really, really challenging. And indeed, we are still seeking a long-term replacement for Mike. The magazine is crucial to us. We need to know how to safeguard it for the future, but we also need to know how we should evolve and develop it in the future. How will it sit alongside more digital access, more digital platforms, and what will that actually look like? And again, our survey of magazine readership will hopefully try and pick out what it is you like, what it is you actually want to see, and what can we actually do more of. But it is a really important aspect for us. We also will need to get some sort of control on the costs of the magazine. So paper costs go up, printing costs go up, postage costs go up. And again, we've got to really be clear that actually we have a long-term future and strategy for the magazine. So it'll be an important aspect we'll be looking at this year. We need to do a whole host of activity around our organisational resilience as well, particularly around understanding our own environmental sustainability, including setting targets to become net zero by 2030. This is important because increasingly grant funders and funding bodies want to know what we're doing around net zero and environmental sustainability. So through the lottery, we're doing a whole series of work to understand the CBA's position, do some carbon accounting and carbon budgeting, and we will then be rolling that out to our wider group and network. So again, our approach is what we learn, we then try and play back to our wider network to support them in their conversations. We'll be doing some additional work around fostering inclusion and equity within our organisation and our network. And again, we're really focused here on what we're trying to do. We believe anyone can take part in archaeology. However, we also recognise there are substantial barriers to people taking part. And it is those barriers we want to understand better and learn how we can actually tackle them and actually open up and help archaeology become far more of a place where people feel they belong. We are going to be reviewing our governance structures and our articles of association. So the articles are our governing document, and it's really important that we have a governing document that's actually fit for purpose. And to help us do this, we've actually set up a new governance committee under our vice chair, Peter Buxton. The committee is now working closely with a charity lawyer to revise our articles of association, as they are somewhat outdated and clunky to use. That actually ends up adding to our administrative burden, and we want to actually make sure we're actually fit for purpose. So we're looking to make our government document function for us and take into account the way in which the organisation operates today, and how we want to operate in the future. We will be looking forward to sharing some of the more technical details with you in due course. Obviously, you have a role in understanding our governing document. But at this stage, it's really helpful for you to understand that this essential governance work underpins all the other areas we are trying to address moving forwards, which includes reviewing and updating our branding, making us fit for purpose, making us be as attractive and open to as many people as possible. So it's actually looking at what do we look like to external audiences who might not already be members of us. We really need to also look at and reimagine our membership. Our membership consists currently of individuals and organisations. So looking at individuals, we need to strengthen our offer. We need to have improved messaging. Again, this point, what Gail was pointing out, your membership doesn't just buy you a magazine. It actually enables us to help over 2,000 young people experience archaeology for the first time and get actively involved in archaeology. It supports our casework function, which is really critical in that planning process. No other body responds nationally on planning applications around archaeology as we do. We need to actually activate our network, and we don't want people to be entirely passive. We want you to help us. We want you to feel engaged, and we want you to feel like your voice is being heard. So again, we're exploring how we can create a more active network. We're really keen on how we also support students and young people, which is why under our membership offer this year, we're actually looking to reduce student membership from the current price of £29 to just £5. And that is just a digital membership of the CBA, but really, again, trying to get this younger audience in and hearing our message and seeing what we can do with them. And then to support the wider membership, we know the challenges when we put membership prices up. Therefore, we are doing a number of different options. And the first one we're actually looking at is getting your agreement to create a digital-only membership. This way, you wouldn't get a paper copy of the magazine, but you would get digital access to the magazine and still get digital access to all of our other activities. So it's actually just making our offer and our options more appropriate for where people are today, which I think, again, is a really important thing and something we're trying hard to actually understand. Through our survey of members, we hope you'll be able to engage more directly, and we're really interested about setting up a members forum to help us with things like looking at the branding and looking at our messaging, where you can feel in smaller groups more directly connected to the CBA staff. We're also really keen to start reimagining our organizational and affiliate membership. Okay, we need to create a more active network of our organizational members. They are the organizations that originally founded the CBA in 1944. They've grown over time, but they've also waxed over time. And we need them to be far more vocal with us and through us in order to help support our advocacy role. Promoting organizations who are CBA members is vitally important to us. We don't at the moment. I would have to say our work around affiliates could be seen as being really passive. I'm really clear we'd like to actually activate that membership and that engagement. We can do a lot more around providing advice and signposting services, particularly around the issues we're looking at, such as equity, inclusion, environmental sustainability, governance, audience development. And as part of the lottery project, we now have a monthly workshop series called In Conversations that we're hosting for any archaeological group or society who wants to come along, share their experiences with us and help us help them. We can do a lot more about developing our message about why groups should become a member of the CBA and what that actually means and what our collective voice actually is. The network of archaeological groups and societies is one of the oldest heritage networks in the world. The CBA took over from the Congress of Archaeological Societies. The Congress disbanded in 1944 when we were founded, and they themselves were actually founded in the 1880s. So our DNA actually stretches back right into the 19th century. As a campaigning and advocacy voice for that part of the sector, we need to do more about that. We need to think about what offers we actually give our organizational and affiliate members. Could we look at offering them discounted individual membership to the CBA for their members? So actually, again, it's about making our network more attractive and more directly associated to the work that they're actually doing. So that's something we will be looking at again over the course of the Reconnecting Archaeology project in order to develop into the future. It's worth just reflecting back on organizations and groups in archaeology and again, looking at what we're now calling grassroots, the grassroots archaeological sector. And again, our survey in 2023-24, taking the temperature, was really interesting about the state of archaeological groups and what they look like. So we had responses from 257 groups. 30% had fewer than 50 members, 26% had between 51 and 100 members. Using an average membership of 65 per group across those 257 groups, we estimate that they represent just under 17,000 individuals and members. I have been trying to do some work to see what state the archaeological community sector's been in. How does that compare to past work we've done? And indeed, the CBA has twice in the last 15 years actually done surveys of archaeological groups and societies. So we did one in 2010 and we did one in 2018. The challenge is they had wildly different methodologies. So one was just trying to contact anybody we could actually find, and it reached out and took organizations who almost had no relationship with archaeology to actually look at it. And the 2018 one was far more focused. But what's interesting is when you do look at the data, the one thing we can absolutely be certain about is the average size of groups is going down. So in 2010, the average size of groups was over 100. By 2018, that had actually dropped to just over 80. And as I've mentioned, we're now looking at 65. Again, we know not just our groups getting smaller, but they are potentially getting less. So as Gail mentioned earlier, since 1997, when we had the peak of organizational membership at the CBA of 500, we've now dropped down to 250. And we need to go away and explore that in a lot deeper. So obviously any survey we do won't be the entire audience, but if you estimate that there might be 250 to 300 active archaeological groups in the UK at the moment, then you are potentially looking at a figure of 17 to 20,000 members. Okay. Now, again, it's really interesting to see how that might compare or might change moving forwards, but in a sense, this is a sort of baseline figure we're starting to look at to actually try and have that deeper understanding of where archaeology and grassroots archaeology might be going and the real role and function of the CBA. That's my presentation finished. I would be delighted to answer any questions if anyone has got any.
There are some questions that have come into the Q&A, Neil. Do you want me to read them out to you?
I can jump on.
Yeah.
Do you want to read them out and then I will see if I can answer?
Okay. Kay says, this feels like a large amount of work, Neil, on top of CBA's existing responsibilities and engagement. Just wondering if you can share a headline project plan with indicative timescales.
Yes, I can. So the lottery project will complete in November of this year. As I said, we're being really, really clear. The lottery won't give us all of the answers, but what it will do is really help us shape what the next iteration, and we do think it'll be a second lottery application, will be. Our aspiration is that would be submitted and potentially in the pipeline for April 2026. The CBA currently has a business plan which we wrote in 2021. It ends this year. Later this year, I will start writing the next iteration of the CBA's business plan, which will be from 2026 to 2031. That, along with the next round of the lottery project, will really shape how we're going to engage in this area. As Gail mentioned, we're really fortunate with the amount of grant aid we've got at the moment, which primarily underpins our three core impact areas. So that is events, mostly the Festival of Archaeology, youth engagement and the Young Archaeologists Club, and our casework and planning advocacy role. And they're all pretty locked down at the moment. So again, we know what it takes to run them. We get really good support for doing that. Our absolute focus has to be on the side of the organisation that is around wider advocacy, our network, our membership, and our communication and voice.
Okay, next question. What is the level of engagement with UK universities? Are many archaeology departments affiliated to the CBA?
Okay, yes, is the simple answer, but also the CBA provides a secretariat for UAC, which is University Archaeology UK. And I attend their meetings on a regular basis. So we have quite a good conversation with them. Indeed, last year we were delighted that University Archaeology Day actually moved within the Festival of Archaeology so that we can jointly promote it. And we are, again, looking at various other aspects about how we can support that relationship. Promoting and supporting archaeology through our university departments is really important. And indeed, two of our catalysts for change projects as part of the lottery are based through universities. So we're looking again at that impact question.
Next question. What will be the criteria for the new special student digital subscription? Is this something we can promote with our older cohort of YAC members?
Thank you, Nigel. Yes, it is something you can promote. At the moment, the simplest issue was to do the offer for students because we could verify whether there were students or not. We are really interested in actually how we will next tackle young people. So potentially those who don't take the route of going down students, those who might, you know, we might look to see what we do for those who finish university, you know, potentially up to the age of 25. What does that actually look like? The challenge is, how do we define those groups more distinctly? And also what we're going to do to see how our student offer and then an offer for young people might align with the work that Joe Curtin's doing around our Young Associates Network. Joe is also heavily involved in trying to create some young leader pathway work. So those former members of the Young Archaeologists Club who are now young leaders, what does that actually look like? So I'm hoping over the next 6 months, we will actually draw all those channels together so we can have a lot more clarity about what that looks like. So yes, we want to do more work in this young person's area to actually help them decide to join the CBA in the first place. And again, certainly through our Youth Advisory Board and our Young Associates Network, then to give them an active voice in shaping our message and actually how we move forward.
Next question. Will you be looking at why individuals join CBA? And if it is for the magazine and it goes digital, isn't there a risk that people will share a digital copy, hence reducing the membership?
Thank you, David. I think that is a good question. At the moment, to get access to the digital copy, you need to go on a bespoke platform, and that is password protected. So I think we would certainly look to actually manage that. I think it's absolutely clear when we look at the statistics around the magazine. We just don't have younger audiences and who don't buy paper copy magazines. And it's not me who's just saying that. It is our magazine distributor. They're called Warners. They're the largest magazine printer and distributor in the UK. And they are absolutely clear with me that hard copy magazine sales, particularly in news outlets, are dropping by an average of 8% year on year at the moment. So I completely understand your concerns in that area. Our real challenge is, in part, society is moving quicker than we can keep up with in this area. So our intention is not to lose the paper magazine for as long as possible, but to actually understand how we can buffer it with more digital access and more digital engagement.
Can I just add something to that, Neil? So I think on one of the slides that I showed when I spoke earlier, I made reference to members and subscribers, because we already have a large number of people that just subscribe to a digital magazine anyway. So there is a differential between members and subscribers in that respect. And yes, it is very difficult. You can't download and you can't share and you can't do this, that, and the other. And it's not something that we haven't had long discussions about in terms of what we would like to try to do to encourage more members to come forward and also to enable members. There have been a number of comments in the chat, for example, where people have expressed a positive desire to have a digital version of membership rather than paper. So it is something that we need to try in order to be able to boost the number of people that have access to what we do and to support the work that we do. Next question. Have you thought about moving to a low-cost monthly subscription model like Dig Ventures and Time Team?
Thank you, Barry. Yes, we have, and we still are, and I think something that might develop more around there. One of the biggest challenges we've got is currently of our membership, over 500 people, 500 members still don't engage with us digitally. Okay, so we still have a significant portion of members who send us their subscriptions by check. We have a significant proportion who do not access any of the digital benefits of their membership. We know when you've logged into the website and activated your members area, and we have a significant proportion of our members who still haven't done that. So our real challenge moving forward to those more flexible subscription solutions is in part also slightly hindered, that we still need to manage this old and really important group in our membership. So again, it's a real challenge about how we actually balance those. Again, the plan is to use the lottery work to come up with possible options, which we will then look to implement in the next stage of hopefully working with the lottery with some increased funding. But, you know, imagining ourselves as a sort of subscription service is one I think you need to be comfortable with. I don't actually know what that will look like in practice just yet.
There have just been a couple of comments in the webinar chat that I'll add in. So we've got comments in favour of retaining the paper magazine. It's very useful to have paper magazines because you can pass those on to non-members, and it's a good tangible way of introducing people to archaeology. And some people, one person has said, I can add, I find it great difficulty absorbing stuff that they read online and continue with the paper magazine as long as possible. That is our desire, to continue with the paper magazine, but obviously we have to be pragmatic about what we do with the magazine. Next question, when you say the size of groups is decreasing, is that paid members or does that include the volunteers?
I don't know. Well, so there are two things taking the temperature actually showed, is I think we can say that the average size of groups is decreasing, whether they have a paid membership or a non-paid membership. What is absolutely clear, because we did quite a few one-to-one interviews as well, is the number of active volunteers. So those people who might take up committee roles or the events organizations or the lecture series organizations, the number of people on average in those groups is decreasing as well. So the challenge of running groups is falling on an ever smaller, diminishing number of people. So not all groups are like this. Some, we did see that there are different, subtly different structures of groups, and some of them are a lot more vibrant than others. And again, the idea by trying to create the network to be more active is to cross-fertilize some of the issues and ideas that the groups have to help support each other.
So somebody said it would be interesting to see the changes in age demographic of the groups alongside their shrinking numbers. Is there a particular age demographic shrinkage?
I wouldn't say there's an age demographic shrinkage. I think there is a drift. Whilst, in our area, if we're really honest, it has always, archaeological groups and societies have always attracted a slightly older audience. I think we can just about pull out, and again, it's really hard because the data collection on all these surveys has been so different, and what we want to do is try and standardize it to really answer this question. I think there has been a general drift upwards. Okay, I think what we need to temper that with, because there is a conversation that you will always get people later in life coming back and joining groups. What we're really seeing is younger people having a radically different approach to how they join things and how they partake, and the motivation for actually doing that. It's very different, and that's something that we've got to learn and again grow through our work and our activities. Right from that first level of engagement through young archaeologist clubs all the way up to more established groups.
We've got three that fit together, partly because I think there was a posting of a question from somebody else. You've partly answered this question. So it's in the youth engagement stage. I didn't hear mention of university students. Have you a stream to connect with them? But the question is really around students versus the universities. I think you've partially answered that question already, or those series that have just come in, Neil.
Yeah, absolutely. So in essence, we do have direct contact with students. We know who all the archaeological societies are at universities. And again, once we create the new student membership rate, then we will actually have a far more attractive proposition to actually talk to those audiences with. Through the festival this year, we're actually going to have an intern particularly for a younger, early career archaeologist to come in and help manage our social media channels. So we're going to actually have a fixed 3-month, I think it's 3-month intern, specifically aimed at getting that younger voice in to come and actually help us. Our challenges is pretty much most of my team now have moved beyond some social media channels. And so actually being relevant, we need to actually proactively encourage those younger voices into our operation. And we need to operationalize those, and we need to speak to them. And again, you know, we have a lot of contacts with universities. We do a lot of lectures and talks, and we know that there are people there who are creating amazing content and want to be active. And the CBA will need to be able to present ourselves as a place where they can come and showcase what they're actually doing.
I think the next one is more of a comment rather than a question. For many small groups, when the debate turns to joining or renewing membership of CBA, it comes down to how much it costs against total income of the individual group. And then we've got a very specific question about the cost of the magazine per copy delivered to the door.
So I've been doing some work on this, and the magazine costs around, taking into our membership and everything that we actually need to do and the numbers. So if you only take it on the membership, you don't take it on any of the additional income that's actually around about it, it's about, it costs about £20 a year. So your annual, £20 of your annual subscription effectively goes to producing the magazine.
Next one is a comment as well. I would urge caution in terms of identifying students as young people. Many of my postgraduate archaeology students are mature. Have you considered student membership for mature students, as this is a hugely growing area?
Okay, so we're not defining student membership by age. If you're a student, you can become a student membership. Have you had any contact with the University of the Third Age? Yes, we do. And there might be a conversation about whether we would class them as students, but I think that's a different question. We're very well aware of the age issue. And again, we have this in the early careers archaeological award we actually run, where we define early career can be somebody who's actually changed careers or who's had a career break and come back into archaeology. So again, we'll be really clear about what we actually mean by it. But at the moment, if you're a mature student studying archaeology, then you would be able to make benefit of our student membership rate. And what we then need to do is look at what that means for wider young people who might not be classed as students, etc., etc. It becomes, we can't please everybody in this conversation, and we do need to have some clarity, but we definitely want to try and address that conversation.
Would there be a really low society membership fee with no magazine and very basic level rights, but at least increase the numbers of society that CBA represents?
Okay, so at the moment, you can join effectively, sign up for the CBA's newsletter, which is free. You can, if you want to, give us a monthly donation of any amount you like. I completely agree that there could be an option of being a member without the magazine. So actually what you're doing is you're joining our advocacy and our cause. And if you are interested in that, I'd love to hear more from you, because that could be an option. Again, we're going to explore really clearly about how that whole banding of membership and what that actually looks like and what that means moving forwards.
Two more questions. Universities across the UK have seen a decrease in international students this academic year. How do you plan to engage with young global audiences without this clear university-CBA relationship, especially since we now have funding cuts that have led to archaeology departments being axed like Sheffield?
Okay, so the first aspect we're really clear about is the CBA is a UK-based charity. We actually are interested in promoting archaeology in the UK. We are aware that there is a much bigger global market out there. And if that global market is interested in archaeology, then we will do all we can to go and actually find it. You know, having a better digital offer would be really attracted to those global markets. So again, actually promoting and making more of digital access to British archaeology is really important in that conversation. I am going to set that aside. We are a UK charity based about promoting UK archaeology and UK archaeologists. So we will never have a global remit in the sense of a remit. We're more than happy that people can join us globally where they want to. And indeed, even today, we've got people joining us from India and the United States. So, you know, reach in that sense becomes really important. And I do appreciate that. But ultimately, we need to ensure that we can make ourselves a going concern from our primary audience, which is the UK.
Last question that's come through the Q&A. Would the overseas subscription be reduced with a digital-only offer? It's already much higher than the proposed normal membership.
Yes, so if you want a digital membership and you live in the United States, you would pay the £40 for the digital membership. The reason why global membership is so much higher is just down to posting a copy of the magazine to the United States or South Africa or Australia. So obviously, without having to do that, then you would actually only have to pay a digital rate, which is what we think we're hoping will be so much more attractive.
I think that brings us to the end of all the questions that I've seen come through the Q&A and shared via the chat. So we're now going to move on to formal item 6 on the agenda, which is membership and subscription rates 2025 to 26. CBA trustees, having considered the financial position of the CBA and the burden of increasing costs, are proposing to increase the standard membership of the CBA. Standard membership will increase from £46.50 to £50. For institutional memberships, the increase in subscription rates will be between £4 and £10. We've had quite a lot of questions about subscription rates. I'm going to invite any more at this point before we go to the vote. Are there any other questions about subscription rates? Can't see any more questions.
Gail,
so the vote is.
You seem to have raised your own hand.
That's just ignore me. That was a click on the wrong bit of the toolbar. So the vote is: do you approve the 2025-26 membership rates as proposed by the Board of Trustees? Yes, no, or abstain. So the results are as follows. Yes, 79%, no, 5%, abstentions 16%. So that's an approval for increase in subscription rates. In addition, the trustees are proposing to introduce that £40. So that was not actually on the screen. I just want to make sure everybody understood that. Trustees are proposing to introduce digital-only membership, £40. Digital membership will include access to the electronic version of British Archaeology magazine, and trustees have also agreed to reduce the student membership. That should have been made explicit in the documentation that everybody shared and has just voted on. Item 7, appointment of auditors. Members are invited to approve the reappointment of Streets Chartered Accountants as auditors for the coming year. So vote, do you approve the appointment of auditors, Streets Chartered Accountants for the coming year? Yes, no, or abstain. So that's 90% in favour, no objections, and 10% abstention. So Streets Chartered Accountants are approved for the coming year. Item 8 on the agenda is the provisional date of the CBA AGM 2026, which is this time next year, Saturday, the 7th of February, 2026. Item 9 on our agenda is any other business that anybody would like to raise at this point. We have no AOBs that I've been formally notified of. There's nothing coming through any of the chats. So that means that I have just to say thank you to everybody that's participated in the formal part of our AGM. And that brings our AGM to a close. Neil, would you like to say something about our video?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, everybody. As ever, getting to the time of AGMs and running them can be a mixed feast. So what we like to do is sandwich between the AGM and the rest of our activities a short video of the CBA in 2024. The video itself is about 7.5 minutes long, and if you'll notice from our programme, we're not due to be back here until 11:30. So you do actually have a chance to have a break. We're going to stick with the timings this morning because obviously the Cardi lecture is open to anyone who wants to actually join in, and that will start at 11:45. So what I'm going to say to you now is please feel free to have a break. Watch the video. I will effectively put it on loop so you can drop in and watch it when you like, and then I will be back to start the meeting at about 11:25, ready to launch the Marsh Community Archaeology Awards. So please, everybody, do take this time to have a quick break and get ready for the part 2 of our morning's activities. And please do enjoy our video of the CBA in 2024.